I think less gore is actually better. But
you think which is better?
Less gore.
Less gore? Like you mean like Al Gore?
Well, yeah,
we're not American.
How many movies does he appear in?
Al Gore?
I feel like that's not a relevant joke.
You made the joke.
Truth. You made the joke.
But now the problem is
Al Gore is not dropping in all these movies that the joke is relevant, Rob.
But he is cut. Well, he was an Inconvenient Truth. Right now, this is an inconvenient discussion about Al Gore. You said Al Gore, and then you said how many movies has he been in? I don't know.
I said less
handful.
Gore. I said less Gore. I feel like
you said less Al Gore is what you said. And I said we're not American. We shouldn't be talking about what should have been the proper 42nd president of the United States.
Okay, I don't know what's going on anymore.
Welcome to the Heroes World Sidekick Show.
What up, Scott? What up, Sarah?
This is John. He's your host.
Am I the host? I thought you were the host. We're co-hosting.
We're co-hosts. We're the co-hosts. We're the co-hosts of the Sidekick Show. My job is to really throw John off of his game. And
we should definitely start switching roles. I prefer to just muck around.
Well, that's what you do.
And throw a wrench in the works whenever possible.
I try. I do my best. So, yeah. Hey, everybody. Hey, John. First of all, John, can I just say happy Thanksgiving, buddy? It's Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend.
Canadian Thanksgiving. You get a turkey with all the fixings, or is that something that you're like we can't finish a turkey? We're gonna get like something smaller or whatever.
Nope. We had turkey. Yeah, there was. We were the first year that we were. A number of us got together. We had the turkey with all the fixings, the stuffing, potatoes, pumpkin pie, apple pie, all that stuff. And you had to go around the room and say what you're thankful for. And of course, a lot of us were like, "Oh, we're thankful that we've known people who have lost family or relatives because of the pandemic, and we're thankful." And I was very honest. I said, "Listen, I was really thankful that we had time away from everybody for 2 years. It was quite nice not having family dinners." And I could have done with one more year. But that's the way that progress works. We all have our shots and vaccinations, and here we are. So I was stuffed to the gills. Did you eat a big turkey meal?
No, we actually skipped the turkey just because there's not enough of us in the house that like it. So we actually saw some in-laws. We had I posted a picture on Instagram. Had some pot roast, some jerk pork, and potato salad. So I'm still full right now. So I think I'm gonna fall asleep in the middle of this podcast here.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? According to Gord, my job is easy, and that's not entirely true, but not entirely false either. Anyway, so we are here where it's Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to all of those who are celebrating. I mean, it's not like it's a religious holiday. It's actually, if you want to go down, the lane as to why Canadian Thanksgiving is early, it's really about when the season of crops changing over. That's why Canadian Thanksgiving is never the same date, as opposed to the American Thanksgiving when it is just a fixed date, much like elections. So that's the difference. Our Thanksgiving is based on the lunar cycle and the crops changing over. John, did you know that?
I did not. Did you pull that off the top of your head?
I did. That's true. Yeah. So, thank you very much. So today I feel like I've stepped in. I've taken over John's role.
Exactly. Less work for me is awesome.
We are stepping back in time, John, the Wayback Machine to 1996 with Wes Craven's Scream. We're going to go over all the details, but it's quite timely because, John, tomorrow a trailer drops for the new version of Scream, which is technically Scream 5. They're just calling it Scream. It's a bit of a soft reboot in that all the events of this movie have happened. This is a new generation. However, a lot of the cast that make it out of this series of movies will reappear in the new Scream. So that's to be discussed later on. But today we're talking 1996.
Will the TV show be canon then?
No, apparently the TV show is not going to be canon. The TV show, much like Blade, the TV show, it does not exist. But I think we're going to start off with a couple of things. John, can you tell everybody? I know you worked really hard today on not only on your Thanksgiving consumption,
stuff in my face,
right? It was stuffing your pie hole, But what else? You were working on stuff on the store. What do you got? What do you got?
So I'm a little behind on the comic releases, so I'll probably hopefully get that posted later tonight or tomorrow. So the comics were shipped to us before the weekend. So fingers crossed, shipping gets a little dicey over the holidays. So hopefully we will have them ready for you Wednesday. And also our missing Marvel books from last week will hopefully be showing up then. But I did get these really cool new Hasbro Fortnite figures from the new, I think it's called Victory Royale or something like that. I don't know what that season is called, but they're really nice figures. So the Fortnite has recently changed over from its previous publisher, I think Jawares or whatever, now to Hasbro. So the same guys that make Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series are now making Fortnite figures, and they look really nice. So I might try and do a video later on today of these figures, but I'm pretty impressed. I've only opened this guy so far, but I'm loving him. Like really nice accessories. He's got these clear parts. He's got some double jointed elbows if anybody knows anything about action figures and cares. But these are really fun to me. And keep an eye on the Heroes World Facebook and Instagram for more new releases coming this week. It is a short week, but I don't think they're going to stop shipping us anything. So keep an eye on that. And I'm going to throw it over to Rob for the news. Hey, look, I got the right side this time.
Good job, buddy.
It took us like a year.
I saw that Scott, our friend Scott in the US, is nutting me, saying second Monday in October. He was, I guess, making fun of the fact that I said it's the lunar cycles. However, it is about the harvest time. So if I said lunar cycles, it's the harvest time as to when the crops were picked. That's why the Canadian Thanksgiving is far earlier than the American Thanksgiving. I don't know what a Rob job is, but if it's about $30, I'm in. Wait, am I paying or am I giving? I got to figure that one out because I'm up in the price from $30. Okay. Drink some water, John.
Okay, you guys make fun of me. It doesn't throw me off, but sometimes you guys get really crazy in the chat, and it is friggin' hilarious. So,
okay, hey, listen, let's talk news, John. We got some breaking news that came out about, it's called 2 hours ago. After being teased at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Adam Warlock will make his debut in the MCU with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Of course, the weird thing about this is that I actually didn't put the name of the dude. Who's it's Will Portier, I believe. You have a photo of him, right, John? It was confirmed by, there we go. Wow. See, let's just actually keep this view, because this actually is a much better.
I should have cut a hole in the mouth.
Yeah.
And done like a David Letterman or whoever used to do that skit, or Conan or whoever.
Wait, just Conan. It's not Conan. Yeah, Will Poulter is Adam Warlock. It was confirmed by James Gunn today, so he will appear in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. John, do you have any insight as to what is this? Good casting, bad, indifferent, doesn't make a difference? What are you thinking?
Typically Adam Warlock is, correct me if I'm wrong or not, an orange-skinned dude,
right,
with curly blonde hair. So I don't know. Like, they didn't show his face in that Guardians teaser, right? They just showed like a. He
was in the cocoon. He was in the cocoon.
Yeah. So let me take a look at this gentleman again. He's a good-looking dude. Right. I don't know if they're gonna curl his hair up or whatever, but which he looks kind of young.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a tall guy or not, but I feel like Adam Warlock would be tall, but what do I know about Adam Warlock? What do you know about Adam Warlock?
You said that he was orange and curly hair.
Yeah, maybe I should pull a picture of Adam Warlock, but we'll leave that for later.
All right. You know what? We'll do that for the, hey, what I miss on Thursday. Let's shift over to some comic book news, because it's been a while since we've had some comic book news. Two big items came out this week. One, thank you, Scott. I appreciate that, buddy.
It's not talking about you.
One is that after, I guess, being off of a production schedule for maybe 5 years or so, Brian K. Vaughan announced that the super mega hit comic with Fiona Staples, Saga, will return and resume in January with issue number 55. I got to tell you, there's a lot of people that went absolutely apeshit with this news. I think he dropped it on Friday or Saturday during New York Comic Con. He actually brought a bunch of signed prints that Fiona had pre-signed and was giving them away at New York Comic Con. So that's really cool. So you've got the cover of issue number 55. And of course, we did not have it here for you. I don't know why, but that's pretty cool news. John, I got
pull it.
Wait, you're going to try to pull it. Look, can you wait till after the show?
Well, hold on.
Why don't you see if you can find the image? In the meantime, I came aboard Saga way late in the game, like towards the end of its first cycle, like before I got into about issue 40 something. John got me into it. And I've been clamoring for its return. So I'm very excited for this coming back. I'm not sure if anybody else in the chat are excited that Saga is coming back. I am. John, are you hyped for Saga's return?
Yeah. Like I said, I was late to the party as well too. Because originally when you look at the cover of Saga, it's a dude with horns and a chick with wings and a baby, and you're like, what's going on here? But I did. It got crazy acclaim. Even though Brian K. Vaughan's resume is pretty, like he's a hit maker, right?
Yeah.
But I took it on vacation with me one time. I think I was going to Florida or something, and I just blew through that first trade, and it was crazy. You get to see a lot of different things.
Yes.
Some giant genitals and stuff like that, just as a teaser, because I know that's going to get you all excited. But it's just a really good constructed story and universe. Like, it's an entire universe, and I'm actually surprised that they didn't do some spin-offs to kind of keep people's attention in the meantime. But Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, I think they've gone out of their way to say that this is their creation. They're not going to let anybody else kind of do things for it. They're not going to kind of compromise on its vision and stuff like that. Yep. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, so there you are, issue 55. I'm very excited for it. Thanks, buddy. We're gonna have a review of that in the next few days. So that's cool. And other comic book news today, it was announced, John, that Jonathan Kent, as you know, is the new Superman. He's going to come out as bisexual in a November issue, written by Tom Taylor, illustrated by John Timms. Issue number 5. We'll see Jonathan Kent and reporter Jay Nakamura enter into a new romantic relationship. I haven't seen too much in a way of online negativity or even support. It's just been kind of like almost like a non-story, and maybe because it came out today and people aren't really paying attention.
It just broke, so it's going to take a second for the trolls to come out. But in general, it seems like people are happy to see this type of thing happening.
Yeah, so there we are, right? The new Superman is coming out as bisexual. This is on the heels of Tim Drake, I believe, as well, right? Who just came out earlier this year, I think. So there we go. Okay, I'm going to flip it over to some TV news. John, one of your favorite television shows is getting a reboot or a sequel, I guess. That 70s show is having a spin-off. It's called That 90s Show with Kurtwood Smith and Deborah Jo Rupp, who are Eric's parents, if you remember. It's going to be produced and it's going to air for Netflix. It's set in 1995, and it follows Leia Foreman, who is a daughter of Eric and Donna, who's visiting her grandparents for the summer and bonds with a bunch of local kids. It is to be expected that we will see cameos from the original cast, including Ashton Kutcher and Topher Grace and whatnot. So are you excited for this? Are you excited for that 90s?
Minus the one guy, unfortunately, who's going through some stuff. But I did really enjoy 70s show at the time. I've never gone back and rewatched episodes though, but I do like the fact that Clarence Bodiger and the lady, I forgot what's her name, who plays the mom again. I think they're both attached as
Deborah Jo. Wait, did you say Clarence
Yeah, Clarence Bodiger from RoboCop,
okay.
Right?
Right. Okay. Deborah Jo Rupp. Deborah Jo Rupp. She was. We last saw her in WandaVision.
Yeah. She's great in whatever role, but she always kind of plays the same character. But I would say they're two of my favorite characters from that series.
Yeah.
What about Wildemir? What's his name? Fez.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'll be back. If Ashton Kutcher's going to be back for a cameo, I'm sure Mila Kunis will be back because, as you know, obviously they're married and have kids together. So, I imagine you'll see cameos. Kind of like the only way I can probably put it, John, is you were really excited when Fuller House came out and you saw the original cast of Full House kept coming in and out of the house, and you were like, I remember you messaging me going, "Oh my God, Uncle Jesse is back in the crib," and I was like, "What?" And
I'm pretty sure I sent you a text to the lines of "I don't lie, you're gonna watch it too." So I'm pretty sure everybody here watched the first season. It's a fun show, but didn't they try an '80s show that failed miserably? As far as I can remember.
Yeah, they did do that '80s show. I don't know if it was with the same cast though. I don't remember. I think it lasted for like one season that was maybe a handful of episodes, and that's it. So, but that's that. Let me see. We're gonna go back to movie news. Rob Liefeld John, your good friend, Mr. Liefeld, he introduced a character called Prophet back in his Youngblood days when he helped kick off Image Comics with Youngblood. Well, it is coming to the big screen, Prophet that is, and it's going to be played by Mr. Mysterio himself. Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be starring as Prophet, and the movie is going to be directed by Sam Hargrave. John, you should know that name. He's a director of Extraction, which is one of your favorite movies of last year.
It's on deck. I'm getting to it.
I didn't say it was your favorite. I think it was one of your favorites. You told me you quite like that Extraction with Chris Hemsworth.
I haven't seen it, dude.
Then why do you keep telling people that it's like one of your top movies, like on Netflix?
I've never said that.
You have. Anyways. Go back to past episodes. You're like, yo, Extraction's like one of like the
no. I said
like
people say people consider Extraction the best. I have not.
You're starting to see how the sausage is made. Everybody, John doesn't watch.
I never. You can go back. Everybody knows that I actually haven't seen this project. But
are you gonna watch Prophet?
Yeah, I think what Liefeld is good at is at coming up with concepts for things. A lot of them may or may not be copies of existing successful concepts, but nonetheless, it could work. Prophet, short summary is he's like Space Conan would be my quickest way to kind of like
Space Conan that's like mixed with Captain America. He's frozen in time, right? And he like Buck Rogers, and he wakes up and he's like, what?
Yeah. Along those lines, they've played around with his with some of the newer series with him, which actually worked really well. He's got a newer Image series. I forgot who was behind it. It wasn't Liefeld, even though he created the character. But sure, bring it on. Gyllenhaal's been picking pretty good projects. I think he's got a brand new movie on Netflix right now. I forgot what it's called, but I've been told very good things about it. I did enjoy stuff like Nightcrawler, and I'm trying to think of what else he was. I loved him as Mysterio. Broke my heart when he was Mysterio and he betrayed Spider-Man. I was like, oh man, I thought it was going to be like a double flip. Maybe Prince of Persia is kind of a little bit dicey, but I don't know.
Well, it is. Yeah, sure. I guess so. Listen, the screenplay was written by Mark Guggenheim, and if that name sounds familiar, it's because he was one of the lead architects of the Arrowverse. So, listen, I'm happy for Liefeld. If Jake Gyllenhaal's attached, you got to figure it's going to be a decent movie. And I really enjoyed Extraction because I actually watched it and can speak to it. So, I think it'll be cool. We'll see how it goes. And finally, John, today, October the 11th, it marked the day that you can buy your advance tickets to the Eternals. The Eternals drops November the 5th, and there are a lot of news stories. If you happen to be going through different websites or on Twitter today, you may notice a bunch of news stories and links for the Eternals, wondering what's going on. Well, way back in the pre-pandemic era, they were allowed, you had reporters that went and did set visits, and then they're under an embargo. They weren't able to release any of the published material or what they saw or spoke to until the embargo lifted, and that's usually about 30 days before the movie comes out. So here we are, October 11th, the embargo lifted, and there's a bunch of articles out there and interviews, including with director Chloe Zhao, who said, and I'm going to quote this one, "The Eternals completely stands alone in the MCU's ongoing multiverse storylines, but what happens in this film will have huge implications on the future." And it was also confirmed today that the movie is going to be set in two different time periods. Well, I guess multiple. 60% of the movie will be in present day, and 40% will take place throughout various parts in history. So there you go, John. The Eternals is just shy of a month away. Today they came out. You can buy your tickets. I haven't picked mine up yet, but I'm probably looking at getting it for the Thursday or Friday. Are you going to pre-order your tickets for Eternals, or are you going to hold off a little bit?
No, I got that email too, but I don't like to plan things that far in advance because you never know what might pop up. It's not like they're not going to have any showings at all, but you never know in this pandemic era. Maybe they will be limited. But there's always a theater. There's always different time slots. So I'm not worried that I'm going to miss out on it on opening night or something like that.
So you're not like an open. I like going like the first couple of days.
It is pretty fun, especially before pre-pandemic, to see it with the very first. We used to see it on the Thursday when they kind of had like that little sneak preview showing before everybody else. So that's when we would go at all hours of the night. But now things are different, and I find the spoilers are not as vicious online, but we'll see.
We shall see. I'm hoping to go opening day. So that's all I have, John, in the way of news, bud.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Very good, Rob. Look at that. Closing with the Eternals. What about Dune? Are you going to be buying your tickets in advance for Dune as soon as that's available, Rob?
They are. The tickets for Dune are available. I haven't yet. Here's my conundrum: is that I don't know if my son would really enjoy it. I don't know. I think it's a hard concept to wrap around. I'm a huge fan of the director Denis Villeneuve. I've seen everything except for Prisoners. I've seen of his in the theater. I don't know. I'm intrigued by the trailer, but I don't know if I need to go see their opening day. You can't really spoil Dune, right? Like,
yeah, the book exists. I assume they're following the book. Maybe you will get it spoiled exactly what point this movie ends at. That might kind of suck. Because you might be waiting for the next part. Obviously, it's going to be a trilogy or whatever the hell is going to happen. But I like how grand it looks. I'm like, I feel like I haven't really seen something like that in a while. And since it's such an old property, it feels original to me.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it goes. There's a shout out. Someone mentioned, I think Sarah mentioned The Harder They Fall. I think we both watched that trailer and we're pretty excited for it. It came out of nowhere for me. I forgot that this project was going on, and then I saw either a Twitch or a Instagram mini trailer, and then I fired it up on the YouTubes. And it looks pretty exciting. Got a really solid cast. I saw Jay-Z has got a producing credit. The music sounds pretty
Idris Elba, Regina King. There's a whole Jonathan Majors. I'm a big Western fan. We've talked about this before. So for me, I'm like super stoked, and that also comes out in November. So I'm stoked for that.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to cover that one. I think that was going to be a lot of fun. Shout outs to Michelle, who hasn't seen Shang-Chi yet, but I think you can wait a bit. I think it's hitting Disney on November, right, Rob?
Yeah, Disney Plus Day is I can find out that exact date, but it will be on Disney.
But it's soon. It's soon, and you've passed the point. Whereas if you saw any spoilers, you've already gotten it. So yeah, if you're not comfortable going, Michelle, I just sit tight and wait it out, maybe. And I don't feel like that movie's going to be too diminished by watching it on the small
November
screen.
12th.
Yeah.
November 12th is Disney Plus Day. So
yeah, it's gonna be here before Scott is not down with Dune at all. I'm curious as to see why. Maybe he didn't enjoy the book. I've heard both extremes. Some people are like, I love the book growing up. Some people are like, God, no, don't touch it. So we'll see how that goes. But anything else you wanted to just add on before we roll? Yeah, I think
no, I'm looking forward. I think a couple of us, you and I have not spoken about Bond. We're not going to talk about it today. I saw it twice in the theater.
You are hardcore, man.
And so you, myself, and Stu will probably do a review in the next, I would imagine, next few days or whatever. So definitely, if you have not subscribed, if you don't have the notification bell, definitely just click that little notification bell, because when it drops, you're going to want to take a look. And I haven't spoken to Stu. I've told him keep your opinions to yourself. I have my opinions. My wife has her opinions after we talked about it.
We have her guest star.
So I'm looking forward to it. So definitely, we will definitely know Fraser was talking about it earlier this show, but we'll definitely get into Bond. Okay.
Yeah. And if you were in on the how many times is Pat going to go to the bathroom pool, he managed to only have to go once, which was
good for him.
Pretty impressive. But he had to go past the whole row. He's like, I'm so sorry.
All right, so we're jumping into Scream, John, 1996's Scream. I believe that you have all of the stats.
I do not, but let's go. Let's learn and go.
All right.
So Scream, 1996 smash hit.
Yes.
Came out
December 18th.
Rob, did it come in? December 18th.
December 18th, December 20th.
We're coming up on the 25th anniversary of this movie, which is pretty crazy. And like Rob said, brand new trailer for the new one drops tomorrow. So maybe we'll have to do a reaction to that. They have released some set photos. So if you want to check those out, those are available online. Had a semi-modest budget, I think, of 14 to 15 million. I don't know why they always have this range. I'm like, you can figure out exactly 14 or 15, or you can just say 15.
Range like 15 to 25, I get, but when you say 14 to 15 million, it actually seems absolutely stupid. Just pick one. It's not, like we're not. Hey, John, how much does that CD cost? I don't know. It could be between 14 to 15 bucks. Just pick 15. That's all.
15 to 16 bucks. We're talking about CDs. No one buys CDs anymore, anyways. But whatever. But it was a huge hit, right? For this genre type of movie, it made 143 million.
73, 173.
73. Yeah. Sorry. See, that's a gap that actually makes more sense. But it in theory, according to a lot of critics at that time, or like horror buffs or whatever, it revitalized the entire horror movie genre. And I think Rob can talk a little bit about what the climate was before this movie hit.
So we talked about doing this movie last week. I had said that this helped reinvigorate, restart, jumpstart the horror movie franchise around that time. And some people were like, that's bullshit. I hate the movie. Fair enough. You may have hated it. But you have to understand what came before it. Like 1993, 1994, you had Jason Goes to Hell.
I don't think anyone said they hated it, but they're just like,
you had Jason
It wasn't on the rewatch.
Sure.
Sorry.
You had Man's Best Friend. You had Return of the Living Dead Part 3. You had Wes Craven's New Nightmare, Cemetery Man. It could have been Celery Man.
Cemetery Man. Does he have a tombstone on his chest?
That's right. No, Celery Man. Yeah. You didn't have any like Brain Scan, right? Like that ridiculous movie Brain Scan, like an Interview with the Vampire and Puppet Master 5. Like there wasn't.
Well, they were designated to like B or C, like
they were
like
B and C,
video almost.
And
movies,
sometimes
right?
they would hit in theaters for about 2 weeks around Halloween, and that was it. And then you'd find it on video, and that was it. The horror movie genre kind of died out. They ran the gamut. I mean, Jason Goes to Hell was number 9. Like you had so many of these movies that are repetitious stuff. Kevin Williamson comes in. Now, Kevin Williamson was the writer and showrunner of Dawson's Creek back in the 90s. He comes in and writes Scream. He gets Wes
Dawson's Creek references in case you guys were curious if we were going to talk about Dawson's Creek today.
There you go. He gets Wes Craven, who directed Nightmare on Elm Street and is known for his horror take, to direct this movie. And this thing literally lit up the box office. I remember 1996. I was 20 years old. But I remember leading up to this, like the fact that Drew Barrymore, we take for granted now, but 25 years ago, she was kind of like had been gone from the social spotlight. She was more known for the shit she was getting into, in trouble-wise, legal with drinking and drug. Like she was the party girl because she was the nice Spielberg kid, right? Back in the day in E.T. and Firestarter, and then she was gone and had a whole bunch of issues. It was huge that she was going to be starring in this movie. And when you go to see this movie and you see her, and we're going to get into it, but you see her, she lasts the first 10 minutes and then that's it. She's gone. Like that was huge. I mean, people really talked about this movie. It did reinvigorate the horror franchise. It took the modern day, like Dawson's Creek was really popular at this time. A lot of those teen shows were quite popular. It took all those fresh-faced actors and baby-faced actors and put them in a genre. It got a jolt in the arm, and then things started copying the formula. You had I Know What You Did Last Summer. You had Halloween H2O. You had Final Destination. Like you had all of these movies, horror movies that then kind of lasted for about 10 to 15 years following that until you got into like the Saw movies, and then things kind of changed a little bit, got a bit more gorier and sadistic, right? So Scream was an important function of the horror genre, regardless of whether you thought it was scary or not. So
I remember I don't remember the theater hype. I was working at a rental store, and I remember when we got the rentals, there was a whole wall full of it, which is for a small store like the one that I worked at is a big deal. And it had I think it had a shiny cover that made the knife like kind of like a chrome shiny color, and people would be like, "Oh, this is so cool," right? So it was big deal. Like Rob said, all those basically teen movies or high school culture movies were big at that time. So they spun it into this whole horror thing. And I think one of the things unique about this movie is the whole idea that they are aware of horror movies. I feel like a lot of horror movies maybe weren't like the whole rules of surviving a horror movie and all that kind of stuff, which we'll get into later.
They played into the genre.
Meta, you would call it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Shout outs to I think Scary Movie, which is I think the original title for this movie, if I'm not mistaken, and then was then reused for the parody. So when you rewatch this movie, they actually say Scary Movie a couple times in the movie. When they say the title of the movie in the movie, and I guess they switched it, so it wasn't really relevant. So where do we really want to start
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess we can start. Listen, we can kind of start here. Okay,
how about you start with Wes Craven? Like he's like horror royalty. I think he passed away a couple of years back.
He did.
So he's one of those guys that is like associated like with the horror genre, right? Like did you say what his first is it Friday the 13th was?
No, it was Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, Freddy. Freddy. Yeah,
the very first Freddy, right? But he also did Swamp Thing, right? He directed the first Swamp Thing in 1982. Nightmare on Elm Street, The Hills of Eyes Part 2, Serpent in the Rainbow. Remember Shocker? Remember that movie about Shocker? The guy was a serial killer, and he gets the electric chair. Remember that it was the cover. It was a guy in the orange jumpsuit in the electric chair. He had the helmet on, and he had lightning bolts coming out of it. Anyways, he directed Shocker. He also
not to be confused with Marvel's Shocker.
That's right. Yeah, or this. And then he also between Nightmare on Elm Street was 1984, and then 10 years later, because there had been so many silly sequels to Nightmare on Elm Street, he then did Wes Craven's New Nightmare to kind of reboot the franchise. John, this was one of your favorite movies from the 90s. He did Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy.
Scream 2, Scream 3. No surprise, he did Scream 4. So there's a lot of movies that he directed, but yes, he was primarily known as, you could say, one of the godfathers of modern horror from the 80s onwards, and then reinventing it again in the 90s with the Scream franchise.
Yeah. So actually, a couple guys threw out some good questions for us to kind of start rolling.
Okay, sure.
First of all, do you and I think we already know my answer, but do you like scary movies, Rob? Is
yes.
Horror genre like? Because some of the people in the chat are kind of like, I'm not into horror or scary. I would say, yeah, I'm not really into it. Rob, looks like you're into it. Do you have a favorite scary movie, or you want to save that for something you might mention, or maybe some of your favorites? You don't have to name the favorite. I'll say, as a young kid, I did discover the whole Jason, which is the Friday the 13th stuff, which I think I've watched more for comical reasons. Yeah. So I didn't watch them when they were brand new out the gate. We kind of went back and would watch them on Laserdisc or video, and me and a couple buddies would just watch how ridiculous it is.
Yeah. Yes. So if you like the Friday the 13th, the Halloween movies, the Nightmare on Elm Street, like I grew up watching those movies. Like if you had sleepovers at your friends' houses, like you were grabbing those movies on VHS and you would watch like Nightmare on Elm Street 4, the Dream Breakers or Dream Chasers or whatever they were called, right? Like, and there was
Dream Warriors.
The Dream Warriors. Thank you. Yeah, Dream Warriors. You had all these crazy, Freddy's tongue coming out of a phone and everything else. Like it was just, I know the song at 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, 3, 4, lock the door. Like it's just crazy, right? So, that helped, propel me into that horror genre. And then, I'm a big fan of, I have a soft spot for those movies. It's been a very long time since I've seen those, to be very honest with you. I like, I really enjoyed Saw. Like I thought the first Saw was really smartly done. I did. I thought it was great. The first movie I thought was just fabulous. I like the Conjuring stuff, like the newer stuff. I listen, I went to the theater. I saw the Blair Witch Project. Like people, I remember they had those big tubs because it was like, that was the first found footage movie that came out, and people were vomiting in the theaters because of
it was brutal. Yeah, I couldn't watch it.
I enjoyed the very first Paranormal Activity. I saw that at the theater, and Ring. I mean, the Ring was, again, it was crazy creepy, and that was the onset of really intense Japanese horror movies that kind of made its way, were North Americanized, right? That came over.
It leads the way to stuff like Squid Games and Alice in Borderlands and all that kind of stuff that's really hot right now. So a lot of shout outs to Nightmare on Elm Street, which might be relevant later on when we get into this episode. And some shout outs to Hellraiser.
I loved Hellraiser. Yeah.
So like, if you're into this horror stuff, NECA, one of the toy companies we deal with, produces a ton of figures for this genre. So over the weekend, because it was Halloween, we sold a bunch of those figures that we've had for a while. So Chucky and Bride of Chucky, the Nightmare on Elm Street figures and stuff like that. So if you're into that, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I agree with Gord. Hellraiser was just so. I mean, I remember watching that and seeing the Cenobites right? And Jaws like that. Just like the idea of being dragged into hell.
Isn't there a new Hellraiser coming out with a female cast as Pinhead?
Yes, I don't remember her name right now, but she was starred in Sense8, but she is going to be Pinhead, so taking over for Doug Bradley. And actually, Hellraiser was originally written by Clive Barker, and so I got so into it, John, that Clive Barker, it was a small story in the Books of Blood. I went down, I took transit down to the world's biggest bookstore, and I bought Clive Barker's The Books of Blood. Like they were like anthology stories within this, and it was like some of the shit was terrifying. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that stuff.
All right, cool. So I think we can move on now that we've established Rob's horror pedigree, and thanks everyone getting really into the chat. Yeah, so it looks like horror is actually a genre for that kind of like, it seems to be both sides. Some people are really into it, some people are not into it at all. I don't know if anyone really straddles the middle. I think when the Final Destinations, all the Scream follow-ups is kind of like where I got it. I remember like date night movies with my girlfriend, that now wife. I think we went Final Destination, then we just called it quits after that. When Saw and all that stuff came around, I had no interest in that.
Yeah, but there are movies that like Halloween movies that aren't like The Lost Boys. I wouldn't say that's a scary movie, but it's just like a good Halloween movie, right? So, you know, that you can straddle that divide, that line, that in between, right? Of being a fan or not fan. But let's get back to Scream, because we're obviously...
So Rob, overall thoughts. Is this still watchable in 2021? Should it still hold its cult status of reviving the genre? Like, is it still, I think you watched it with your son for the first time.
He wants... I know, questionable parenting. I don't know. He wanted to watch a horror movie, and you know, I was like, "Well, let's look at live birthing videos on YouTube." And he goes, "No, I want to watch something real." So I said, "Okay." So I figured, you know what? Let's watch Scream. Right now, it's rated PG. I mean, things have definitely changed. When it was released in the US, it was rated R. In Canada, it was 14A, and now we've, I guess, been desensitized with Call of Duty.
Worse stuff on TV shows now. Yeah.
Yes.
There's scarier stuff on TV now. Yeah.
So this movie does hold up in the sense that I think it's fun. I think it's funny. Somebody earlier in the chat said that Matthew Lillard is really funny in this, and it is. This is the epitome of like that teen comedy, like with horror slashed in. It hits all of the standard horror tropes, including the cat jumping out and scaring people. You know, but I will say, like, you know, my son found it to be, you know, the jump scares with the violin and like that, and you know, all that stuff, and you know what's behind the door. There's nothing there, and then you close the door again, and something's behind you. So it had all of those typical jump scares, but I did find Ghostface wasn't particularly scary as right, like as a character. I think if you look at Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers, what made them terrifying is their slow walk. They were just coming after you at their own pace. They were never running after you, but you couldn't stop them. Everywhere you turned, they were there, and they were slowly walking to. It's disturbing. And this one, these guys are running through like the Ghostface is running through forest. You would see him, you know, in between, you know, in the background of like the convenience store and stuff like that, kind of ducking behind a shelf. And so I think it kind of took away a little bit. And I don't know if that was purposefully done to try to make it more palatable for a younger... I think it
wanted to be more real. Like this could be a person in your neighborhood or something like that. Yep. Instead of some, I don't know what you would call it, ethereal beam or being or something like that. Like a spirit of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, listen, my son quite enjoyed it. I haven't seen it in years. So I thought it was I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I'm looking at it from the view of a 25 years later and being like, oh, like it is, you know, some of the camera angles, like the Dutch angles were a little weird. I thought like the way that they were doing the forced perspective on things, I thought was a bit bizarre. But that's just me being 25 years later. I still loved it. I thought it's a good entry for people who have maybe teen kids who haven't really seen a horror movie. I think Scream is a good entry because that will give you, you will be able to gauge whether or not they can handle like more adult themed horror movies. Because the one thing you'll notice is that while you may see people being killed, you don't see them actually being stabbed. And I don't know if you notice this, John. the knife would come down, and then the person would be holding their gut. You actually never saw somebody being stabbed. Sometimes they would turn, and you would see the knife like this, but you actually never saw the knife enter into anybody. So, there you go.
I would even argue that it's only the intro scene that is, I guess, the most violent and kind of gruesome. And then the rest of the movie kind of becomes a little bit more tame with the killing and murdering. Yep. Yeah, I think the movie's still I think it's still watchable. Yeah, you don't see the knife penetrating flesh. We'll put it that way. But I feel like it's definitely still watchable, and then it's not like there was any kind of CG effects that don't work. Apparently they used a ton of fake blood in this movie, so yeah. I do like. I think someone mentioned it earlier. The reveal. I guess we're going full spoiler. So if you haven't seen Scream,
25 years old.
Yeah.
And what are you watching this show for? We're talking about Scream.
Yeah. The reveal of two killers. So like in quick summary of the movie, Neve Campbell plays a character whose mother was murdered, and then all of a sudden a year later, some dude pops up and kills Drew Barrymore and her boyfriend right off the get-go of the movie, and then it proceeds to be kind of like a whodunit, and it turns out to be two killers, which is pretty interesting. I like when I first fired it up, I actually thought I didn't see this, but actually when it started firing up, I did start to remember things. So I definitely did see this back in the day.
Yep.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, they all just they're all okay. They're okay. The news story after is there was only a couple of casualties, like maybe the garage door girl and things like that. But yeah, overall, I think it's still watchable. It's kind of neat that it features so many stars, whether they became something after or were something before this. It's interesting to see all of them in this movie. So especially if you're a Courtney Cox fan or Neve Campbell. Neve Campbell, very hot from Party of Five. I think at the time was also airing, so I guess she stepped away to do this, and then Courtney Cox still on Friends at the time and played this I guess bitchy character, which was a departure from Gail Weathers from her typical
goody two shoes and Monica.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So I think we are overall agreeing that this is definitely watchable for you in 2021. Should it hold its cult status? I think so. I think it's that moment in history. What it did, maybe you might not enjoy watching it anymore, but it definitely did that. You can't take that away from it.
No. Right? So here's so Courtney Cox meets David Arquette. They actually met on this, and then they actually got married afterwards, right? And if you remember that one season of Friends when it was Courtney Cox Arquette, and so what they did is people were kind of going mental about that. So on the opening credits of Friends, it was Jennifer Aniston Arquette, David Schwimmer Arquette, like they all changed their last name because people are going. But yeah, she met David Arquette. They fell in love, John, and they got married, and then they divorced some years later. But yeah, man, you're right. You had these people that were kind of, in the height of some of their fame or just entering their fame. Matthew Lillard was in Hackers before this and a couple other projects, right? And
he was also in, I think She's All That was also this year, I think. So he was in those two movies.
Yeah. And then Skeet Ulrich, I remember people were like, oh, this is the new Johnny Depp. This is the new Johnny Depp, because he had a very Johnny Depp vibe to him, right?
Yeah. I was like, who is this guy? He looks very familiar. I guess he didn't really become much after. I think he's on Riverdale now.
Yeah, he is on Riverdale now.
I'm not 100% sure. So let's talk a little bit about the cast. Do you have anyone that was really stood out as a favorite to you? As you guys in the chat, if you guys remember this movie or if you rewatched it with us, let us know who you really liked in this movie or who you hated.
So Gord took mine away, man. See,
I was like, this guy looks familiar. I know this guy is somebody.
Henry Winkler,
uncredited, right?
No, he's credited. I think it's Henry Winkler was the Fonz, and he stars as the principal in this movie. And the fact he scares himself in the mirror with the mask. Oh, he takes it off and he's holding it. And then somebody knocks on the door and he closes it. He's holding it. It freaks him out. I loved it. I thought it was great. And you know what? Listen, I'm going to go with Matthew Lillard as well.
Oh, man. I thought he killed it in this movie.
I'm really bleeding here, man. And then when he's like I'm going to call 911, he goes, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me.
I think there's one point where the other killer throws the phone at him and he's like, you just got stabbed, dude. How is someone throwing a phone at you gonna
and Jamie Kennedy, because you and I, again, we know you were at a video store, but buddy, I was at Roger's video as well. And so looking at him riding that return cart in between the aisles and taking those stacks of VHS, putting them on the shelves. I was like, oh my God, that's what I used to do. I used to love that. So I'm going to go with that. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about Nev Campbell? I was getting a lot of early Sandra Bullock, almost like a Lyndall Hamilton kind of vibe from her. And unfortunately, I guess she didn't really kind of take off after this. It feels like she just kind of stayed.
Yeah, she was still doing some Party of Five. She did the sequels of Scream. I think she did a couple other little things. She was in The Craft, right? Wasn't she in The Craft as well?
Yeah,
so, The Craft. Yeah, so she did some other movies.
Sarah mentioned Wild Things.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Rob, I light up. Eyes light up.
Yes. Yep, that's true. Denise Richards. Yeah.
I said vibes. I never said she was the new. I was like, just the way she kind of like acted and the way her hair sat and that kind of stuff. I'm trying to think of who the Jamie Kennedy I felt like is a little bit of a stretch, but I don't know if that's maybe just because after this movie I feel like he was trying really hard to hit and it quite didn't work. I remember the Jamie Kennedy Experiment.
Yeah.
And wasn't there another movie called Something Malibu? Malibu or something like that.
Yeah, he had a few of those movies, and you're just like, it was like Tom Green, right? Like, oh my God, he's so cool. Let's put him in some movies, and then all of a sudden he does like Freddy Got Fingered, and you're like, you're out.
Yeah.
Right?
I think they maybe made too many things center on him where they should have built him up a little more. What do you think of David Arquette as like David Arquette, right? As the worst cop on the planet.
Yeah, Dewey. I know. Well, but see, this is the thing about it, right? Is that they played into all of these horror movie genres and tropes. Like, and as Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy, said,
when he presented those tropes, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. But Dewey was playing the oh gosh, shucks, the constable, the dumb cop. I mean, he didn't play it straight. He didn't take it seriously, but he had a bit of a boyish charm to him. It provided a little bit of a balance of that comic relief. I thought it was David Arquette being like David Arquette, man. I don't know what else to say.
I just remember it was a big deal that he was in this movie for some reason. And everyone's like, yo, David Arquette's in this movie. And you watch it and you're like, he's an idiot. Worst cop ever. But he lived, so that's good.
Yep.
Oh, anybody else? Anything else you got?
I
think everybody unanimously likes Lillard.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what was that guy's name? Skeet Ulrich.
Skeet Ulrich.
He was pretty, menacing. Okay. Yeah, he was okay.
I asked my son when we were watching it. I was like, "Do you know who the killer is?" And he thought it was her dad, actually. But because there is a misdirection, like they make the principal, they make it look like the principal could be the killer. They make it look like the town sheriff might be the killer because he's wearing the same. Remember they zoom up on his shoes. He's got the same like Doc Martens or whatever.
Everybody was wearing those back in the day, though.
Exactly. They had the dad. It was his cell phone has been missing. They can't get him at the hotel. They made it very obvious that Skeet Ulrich was the killer. So obviously you're like, oh, it couldn't be him. So like there was a lot of misdirection in this movie. And even Randy was, you're like, oh, maybe he's the guy, right?
Yeah.
But the fact that they used two,
at one point he's like, oh, it should be me or something like that. I forgot. Like,
yeah. But the fact that they used two, I mean, that was pretty ingenious, right?
Yeah. Because they make it really obvious of the boyfriend in the beginning, and then they throw you off.
Now, two things I want to point out. One, I thought it was really funny. I don't know if this was a conscious effort. I don't know if it was a direction, if it was written, but every time the killer stabbed somebody, he always wiped the knife clean to kill somebody else. Did you ever notice that?
I didn't, but I would assume it's probably for consistency. They're probably like, oh, we don't have to mimic the blood that's on this knife for every shot. So could you do us a big favor and wipe it off every time? So we just have to grab a clean knife.
I thought it was really hilarious. And the second thing is, so the whole premise is that Nev's Nev Campbell's Sydney, that her mom was the town slut. Now we saw the photo of Nev Campbell's mother that they showed on the news. Like she looked like the most like she, it looked like a church-going lady who was baking pies on weekends. Like you would not be like, you don't look at that photo and you're like, oh, she's a hoe. Like it was like, it just seemed like so bizarre to me that they were like, oh yeah, she's sleeping around with lots of people. And I'm like, but it's if that's gonna be a plot point, I guess, which is I'm fine with. Yeah. Maybe use a bit more of a racier photo that could then you're like, oh yes, and I can see that
like a swimsuit calendar poster,
right, or something, right, or something
against my dad's car.
What's that?
No, look at her leaning against.
Oh yeah, exactly, something, right? Or like but
really
as opposed to like wearing like the prim and proper outfit, it just didn't make any sense. But whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah, well, who knows? Those killers could say whatever. Yeah, so Il Ricky, I think that makes a good point that Drew Barrymore, in the beginning of the film looks like she's genuinely scared out of her mind. So that was
well, and her post, he's talking later on about how she's billed as on the list and she's a front cover, but she was the front of the poster. The cinematic poster was her face. This is very much, and I think they replicated this a year or so later, John, with Executive Decision with Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal. And Steven Seagal is gone in the first 8 minutes.
Spoiler alert for Executive Decision.
He gets sucked out of a tube like that when they're trying to dock the two planes together and the airlock comes apart and out goes. There's Steven Seagal. Smell you later. So,
yeah. Oh, man. So that's our cast talk. Who do you think, since we're just still on cast, who do you think got it the worst? Who do you think died the worst in this movie? Is it the garage door girl? Rose McGowan, right?
It was Rose McGowan. That didn't make sense because I was just thinking, like, just the way they were shooting it.
She totally could have fit through that door,
or pushed back out and like got out.
No,
like it.
Well, my one problem with that scene is she's actually kicking his ass. Like she's flipping him over. She's throwing stuff at him. She was whooping his ass. So I'm like. So it kind of sucks that, I guess that's why a lot of things are allowing stronger female roles. But it's like she was kicking his ass and all of a sudden they kill her like that. I was like, oh, man, that kind of sucks.
Yeah. So that was. Yeah. And I mean, seeing her head get crushed in the cat door, right, as it hit the top.
Yeah. Sarah's actually got my pick, which is the boyfriend, Steve, who somehow in the blink of an eye gets gutted from
I know
his entire innards, the most graphic death in the whole movie, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? I was going to say, like, Drew Barrymore's death, because when she gets stabbed in the neck,
it's gruesome. Yeah.
And then she sees her parents walking up and she's like trying to scream out to call out their name, like her mom. And she's so hoarse because like she's bleeding through her neck. She's like, Mom, and they can't hear her. Like, that to me was just right, like that.
I think that's the most terrifying, and then he ends up stringing her up.
Stringing her, and then ripping her,
which is
her
horrific. Well. When I first fired up this movie, I basically messaged Robin like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this because I cannot be watching this movie and have my girls walk in and go, "What are you watching?" It'd be like horrifying. I don't want to score them, so I had to make sure they were nowhere in sight.
Right. Yeah, so that for me was probably the worst, I would say.
Yeah. I think that was the most terrifying. I definitely give shout outs to Steve, who got I don't know what it read on the casting call sheet. Boyfriend who who doesn't get to speak and gets gutted instantly when she answers the horror movie trivia. Would you have got that horror movie trivia question correct, Rob?
Yes. I remember the Friday the 13th. It was the mother. But so my buddy Brent and I, we went with another girl. Went to saw this movie and we dropped her off at her house. I remember she was home alone that night, and Brent and I took off, and we drove back, and we had cell phones because we all had like ClearNet. This was before TELUS. There were ClearNet cell phones, remember? And we called, and we blocked the number, and we were like, I don't want to say her name because she's like a principal in Toronto, but I always call her Jane. I'm like, hello, Jane, and she's like, fuck off, guys. I know it's you. I'm like, what's your favorite scary movie? And she's like kicking her out. It was just so, like, we were just, because it was just like so like pop culture zeitgeist. We were just fucking around. But yeah. It was
I feel like if everyone had their cell phones active at that time, they would have been calling up everybody. Yeah. Do you?
Yeah. Do you want to play a game?
Yeah. All right. So I guess I don't know if there's anything like if we've already narrowed down the worst or the best, I don't know if you'd call it the best death. Do you have any other scenes that you would want to mention that were like your favorites from the movie? I really like. I think people have mentioned it earlier in the chat that the Jamie Kennedy explaining all the things that'll get you killed in a horror movie was pretty clever at the time, and I was actually gonna jot down the list, but I figured it was pretty obvious what he was saying. But
yeah, I like the fact that the cameraman, what was his name? Fart, man. What was the guy's name? I can't remember. Anyway, he gives Gail the little mini recorder, right? And she hides it she hides it by the VCR. How do you not notice a camera like this big staring at you, right? At any rate, I like the fact though that it's got the 30-second delay, and he's sitting there eating his the cheesies, and then Jamie Randy's on the couch, and somehow he got drunk real quick, real fast, and he's by himself, and he's watching Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis. He's like, turn around, and the killer's right behind him, and I'm like, oh my god, it's just so funny, right? Yeah, I thought having that 30-second delay thing, that was pretty ingenious. I thought it was quite funny, right? So
yeah. I definitely just like that speech, and then at the end, he's like, "Oh, you want a blah blah blah, whatever." He's like, "I'll be right back."
Great, you're dead. Way to go, you're done.
I will say I don't know if Scott means the Drew Barrymore scene, but I think that is probably one of the strongest scenes of the movie, which is the opening. So if you want to, and it's definitely, I feel like it's the most intense and most scary of the entire movie. So I feel like the ending didn't quite get there. Before we move on, Rob, if we've got to stab each other to make a cover story, where do you want me to stab you first?
In my leg.
In the leg? I feel like
in my thigh.
Yeah, but it's not going to be believable. They're going to be like, they stabbed you in the leg, and then
I'll say I jumped. He was aiming for my stomach, and I jumped, and he got me.
You jumped, and then you're just out for the rest of the game. You were like, I just pretended to play dead.
Yeah,
and the killer stabbed me in the leg and was like, yeah, he's definitely dead. I got that guy right in the
leg. I must have killed him. I think I got him right in his thigh.
I got him right in the leg. He's done, guys. Don't worry. We don't need to check on him. We don't need to check the pulse.
In my buttocks, right in my right cheek. Stab me in the ass. I'm too afraid.
Stab that guy in the ass. He's dead. Good.
I'm gonna jump and turn. You can stab me in the ass. I'd be too I think.
How'd you survive this massacre? He stabbed me in the ass, and I just played dead, and he bought it.
I'm bleeding out my ass cheek. Oh no, you've got me, killer. Oh, yeah. I don't know, because I don't want to be stabbed in the. I don't want to be stabbed in the stomach.
Both Scott and Sarah are like, there's a major artery there in your leg that is probably not a good idea. Jonathan Yo wants to be stabbed in the shin. I'm like, yeah, I got you in the shin. Play dead, John, after someone says that.
Yeah,
and then we got the deltoid. So I feel like when they were kind of like, oh yeah, somewhere in the gut area, and you got to try maybe I don't know where you would. Maybe we should research this in case it ever comes up in real life.
Well, where would you want me to stab you?
No, I'm not part of this. I'm out of here.
No, but you said it was you and
the
I.
First one out. The correct answer is I'm not in this. I'm not participating in this. I'm out. Not how do we cover our getaway? Where do you want to get stabbed?
Well, yeah.
So Gordon volunteers for the gunshot. Okay. Do you want the gunshot in the shin, Gordon? Play dead. Shot the guy in the leg. Just drop to the floor and just don't move at all.
Yeah, I don't know. Now I'm all I'm questioning. I just don't want to be stuck. I don't want to be stuck in the stomach, because I think you can perforate too many organs and stuff in the stomach. I think it's too difficult. I'm gonna stick with my thigh.
Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure the killer's circling back around for you. It's going to be hard for the cops to buy your story. Okay. What anything in this movie that just didn't stand up? You were just like, ew, like this is like
the cell phone from 1996.
That's in like all of these old movies when they whip out the big things, or even flip phones. Like if we go back and rewatch The Matrix, when they're going to have those Nokias and stuff with the flips.
Right. Yeah. What? No, you know what? I it really doesn't date itself. Do you know? You see like the big, the cell phone, but there's not a lot in this movie that dates itself. You know, video stores, whatever. But I guess because I grew up with that, it doesn't bother me any. My finger. So no, nothing really stood out that I thought was just ridiculous. I guess I was at the garage door because I was fairly certain that like it has those sensors. Like if you touch the bottom of your door that's coming down,
it was probably again, the era before the sensors. But I've had many a garage door break, and I've had to replace, that spring or whatever mechanism. I feel like once she hits the top, that thing is the opener is just gonna fall off its hinges onto the floor.
Well, yeah,
and then the door's just gonna slam shut.
Yeah, that was a lot of weight. Like I don't know if a garage door can actually handle pulling up that much weight. Like I thought it would just stall. I don't know. Anyways, sure, I'll just go with that. How about you?
I don't know. I couldn't quite pinpoint. I think it was maybe there was an awkward scene where Matthew Lillard was like walking around with his girlfriend, and he was just kind of like, I don't know what he was doing. He was like kind of like basketball maneuver, like he was like flipping her around himself and stuff like that. He was like carrying her around like she was like a rag doll.
That's when
like, this is weird.
That was when the principal told them that school has been canceled. You're on, and he's like, "Hey, we're having a party at my house," and he picks her up and he throws her over his shoulder. And yeah, you're right. Then he spins around.
He's kind of like doing like a circus act.
And like he's very touchy feely. And I'm thinking to myself as I'm watching this, I'm like, I wonder. And this is, I'm not trying to, but like, I wonder if that was planned or if he was improvising that, because he was touching her lower back. He was always touching Rose McGowan's character. So I don't know if that was purposefully done or not, but I was like, yeah, a little, like I'm all for like PDAs, but you guys real handy. I don't know what's going on here.
It just seemed very weird to me, but yeah, I think overall the movie successfully dodged a lot of things that could have been bad. I don't know if you got anything else you want to cover for this movie, Rob.
No, you know what? I'm glad we went back and saw it. I thought it was good. I'm glad. Listen, it didn't scare me. It was fun. Like I think if you haven't seen this movie and you're watching this, and you're like, I'm still not going to watch it. You know what? You're starting off your horror October, movie marathon. It doesn't hurt to start this one off. It's a nice entryway into the horror genre. I think it's good for people who have, 12, if you're mature 12s, 13 or whatever, you haven't really seen many horror movies. You can't always be Hocus Pocus on Disney Plus. You got to get them to watch something else, right? So
we keep making fun of Hocus Pocus, but didn't it all of a sudden start raking in money during the pandemic because it was the only movie on airing in October or something like that?
Yeah.
For some reason, the movie became a smash hit. Randomly, wasn't there a movie with two female leads? It was like Death Becomes Her or something like that, and they were like undead women.
Yeah. Was Bette Midler and Goldie Hawn. No, not Bette Midler. Sorry, Goldie Hawn and oh my God, one of the most famous actresses of all time.
I just bring that up because for some reason I keep mixing that up with Hocus Pocus.
Oh, what?
Which is
with Bruce Willis. It's Bruce Willis, Goldie Hawn, and oh God, why can't I think of her name? Meryl Streep.
Oh, there you
go. And the undead, and it's Bruce Willis, and it's fun. But that has something. That's not Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was funny, man. So thank you everybody for joining us on this trip back to 1996 and watching Scream, or at least reminiscing about your time with Scream. So what do we want to put on deck next? Has anyone got some suggestions? Are we going to bring it on? Are we
Get the hell out of here.
Are we gonna have to create a spin-off show to do Bring It On?
You guys, I will not be part of that show. Listen, man, I think as much as Scream helped define the genre movies from 1996 to mid 2000s, I think we got to go even back further, buddy. I think we go back to 1984 and the movie that helped kick off the 80s, and that's Nightmare on Elm Street. The first Nightmare on Elm Street, introduction of Freddy Krueger, Johnny Depp's first movie, directed by Wes Craven, who obviously just directed Scream. I'm thinking Nightmare. It's currently playing. It's on Crave.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen it, and I think for sure I'm right this time. think for sure. I don't recall it. Johnny
You
Depp.
may have seen the subsequent movies.
I think I've seen the later ones because when we would go our rental store, I don't think it had the first one for some bizarre reason. I think I've seen a bunch of the after ones, and we really got into the Jason stuff for some weird reason. I don't know why. But yeah, it looks like Gord's in. Oh, look! Hey, look at this. We got a bunch of support on this one. So if for some reason I can't fit it in, we're gonna have a bunch of replacements. The replacements. Oh, we should watch the replacements by the sidebar.
Yeah, I say Nightmare on Elm Street. What the hell?
Yeah,
you good.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So
thanks.
Nightmare on Elm Street. I know that Fraser said he doesn't subscribe to Crave. I'm gonna see where else it's playing. If it's streaming anywhere else, just give me a quick second. Let me see. Ooh, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Should you not have a copy already? Is this not considered a classic in culture, in film culture?
Oh, it's also on Prime. Let me double check.
Oh, it might be on Amazon Prime.
It is on Amazon Prime if you have the Starb subscription. So, at any rate, or you can rent it for $4 if you would like. But yeah, so Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Wes Craven movie with Johnny Depp, directed by Wes Craven, Freddy Krueger, yeah, we will dive into that.
Yeah, I think this is one of the first time we've gone backwards, so we're gonna have to even further back. Like we went to a 90s movie, and now we're gonna go even further back to an 80s. So we're gonna see how well this holds up. And me having not, I'm pretty sure I haven't seen it. It's gonna be interesting. And
I think what we'll do is in the week after that we'll try to slingshot back up to the present and find something that's recent, and kind of compare that. So yeah,
cool.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Rob.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you for hanging out with us and talking nonsense. Or us talking nonsense and you guys making fun of us for it. So that's Pet Cemetery. I don't know. Is that a classic? I don't know.
Not many Stephen King movies actually hold up. So.
Oh, really? What about Lawnmower Man? I'm sure that's fantastic.
That is horrible. No. Oh God, no.
Maybe that'll be slated on the schedule for next year.
For those, though, again, as John said, thanks everybody for watching. For those who haven't seen it because you were busy this long weekend, the Heroes World main podcast came out yesterday. We talk about What If episode number 9 and our thoughts on that and the series as a whole. And then we also talk about, hey, if we had to gather our four heroes across many multiverse, regardless of what comic imprint or brand, who would you choose to defend the universe? So we went over that. So definitely tune in and watch that. We've got Hey, What I Missed coming up on Thursday with John, myself, Chris, and Pat. Andre's got a new show called TGIF with our friend Jesse. And they're talking, that's on Fridays, obviously, TGIF, that's on Fridays. And at some point this week, I'm sure we'll be talking Bond. We're recording it at some point.
I have a feeling, it's going to be our Sunday podcast. We're going to talk No Thanks, I'm Going to Die Later When I Have Time, is the official title of the movie.
Okay. So we'll be talking about that. So maybe, yes, it'll come up on our next week's pod on Sunday. And again, hit those notification bells because as John said, Scream, the new Scream's coming out January. The trailer drops tomorrow. Maybe we'll do a trailer reaction on that. So with that, I think we should bid you adieu.
Yes. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll see you later.